Okay, so we have folks in the audience now. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everyone this late afternoon, early evening, for those on the East Coast, to this session where we'll be talking about youth voice. And we're pleased to have three very distinguished individuals with us this afternoon: Mosine Hasham, Ian Goldberg, and Wayne Moss. As the moderator, I'm going to play a very quiet role, so I'm going to ask the participants to introduce themselves in alphanumerical order and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do. And as a reminder to the folks in the audience, if you have questions at any time, please use the chat feature and enter your question, and we will work it into the course of discussion. With that, Ian, I believe my alphabet is actually Mosine. No, Goldberg. Got to do the alphabet song. Ian, we'll let you kick things off.
Great. Thanks so much for having me to be part of this amazing virtual event. My name is Ian Goldberg. I'm the founder and CEO of a software company in the youth sports industry called iSport 360. The reason I'm excited to be part of this event is because I created a platform for youth sports that is focused on making sure that every kid has success in youth sports, regardless of their skill level, their age, their gender, their sport. So I launched this company about 3 years ago. But one of the most rewarding parts of what I do is writing a newsletter that reaches about 120,000 subscribers. And I call this newsletter a support group for sports parents and coaches. And we just share a lot of best practices and suggestions. And we use a lot of humor to reach parents and coaches and just help them with some of their frustrations and challenges. So I get a lot of really great contributors like professional athletes and professional coaches and psychologists and educators to join me in doing that. So thrilled to be here with Mo and with Wayne and be part of this panel.
Hey, Mo, go ahead.
Thanks, Martin. My name is Mosine Hasham. A lot of people call me Mo. I'm from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Born and raised in Vancouver. And I'm the executive director and founder of an organization called Hockey for Youth. We basically take newcomer and high priority high school students and we put them into ice hockey, free ice hockey programming. And the reason why we do that is we want to foster social inclusion. We also have an off-ice program called Teach, where we focus on experiential learning, so technology, entrepreneurship, arts, community giving, and healthy active living. And just to backtrack a little bit about my story, so my parents came to Canada in 1972 as refugees from Uganda. They were exiled out of the country, and Canada was a safe haven for us. And I was the youngest, or I am the youngest of 4 kids. And at the age of 6, my parents were given a set of donated hockey equipment by a neighbor. She still lives across the street from my mom in Vancouver. And that's how I got to start playing hockey. I played right through university in Prince George, British Columbia. That's in northern BC. And John Cooper, actually, the Tampa Bay Lightning coach that just won the Stanley Cup, he's from Prince George. So kudos to him. But hockey is a very expensive sport, and it's something that I know. Coupled with my background in corporate philanthropy, this became just a beautiful opportunity for me to create something really special to get kids involved in a sport that is effectively out of reach. And I'm happy to be here with Ian and Wayne and you, Martin, and all the guests today.
Great, thanks. Wayne?
All right. Hey, I'm Wayne Moss. I serve as the Executive Director for the National Council of Youth Sports. We're a member organization. We serve some of the who's who in the youth sports business. Serve folks like national community-based organizations, Pop Warner and AAUs. We serve mom and pop community-based organizations, some national governing bodies like USA Synchronized Swimming. And then there are destination marketing organizations that we support as well. We've got three broad focuses that we're interested in. One is to be an advocate for youth sport organizations, and those that don't have a voice. Two, we're interested in educating our members, the general public about all things youth sports. And then, the third thing is really connecting our members with products, goods, services, tools that make a difference for them. Mo was talking about his exploits. I might have to go back to when I was in the third grade and playing on the Epi Barney Blue Bombers football team. No, just kidding about that, although I did play. No, sports is, it's been a passion of mine all of my life. I can remember my mom when I was a kid saying, hey, you need to put that sports thing down. You won't be able to make a living doing that. So here I am, Mom.
Excellent. So thank all of you for those words. And again, just a reminder, if you have questions, please use the chat and fire away. So I want to start off with just a very basic overview question and ask each of you how you define youth voice, just what that is. And Wayne, since you went last, why don't we kick off with you?
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. So this issue of youth voice is one that I'm particularly interested in. I also spent 15 years with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America in the national office. And from a youth development perspective, it's certainly important for us to engage young people in sport, in activities. What we're ultimately up to is helping young people become productive adults. And so when I think about youth voice, it really is providing them with access. And I think about it from an organizational perspective in 4 ways, the four rungs of the ladder, if you will. The first rung is really like there's no voice. Kids just show up, young people show up, and they get what they get. The second rung of the ladder, I think is one around input. And that simply means that young people, they've got to say, they, can make suggestions about, programs and so forth. The third rung of the ladder, I would say is really they're able to provide some guidance. And that fourth rung is really around leadership, that they actually can exert leadership inside of the programs that they participate in. So Youth Voice is all about giving young people an opportunity to have a say in what they do.
Great. Wayne and Mo, you want to jump in? I'm sorry, Ian. Mo, do you want to jump in? My apologies.
Yeah. Wayne rightfully pointed out, it's about access. And one of the things that we always talk about at Hockey for Youth is, having space, creating space, having a seat at the table. One of the hashtags we like to use is the only barrier should be the boards. And effectively, that's the way we run our programming, is having that opportunity to get kids engaged, create a safe space for them to then do
Mo, we're having some trouble with your audio feed. You might want to check that. Ian, do you want to kick in here while Mo's working on that?
Sure. Yeah. So as a sports dad and volunteer sports coach in New Jersey, to me, the kid's voice is the voice that we can't hear because the parents are yelling so loudly from the sidelines. And I feel like it's really important to encourage kids to learn to speak for themselves, to have the confidence to speak to their coaches, get feedback on how they're doing, help kids drive their own youth sports experiences, because really this generation of parents, and I'm as guilty as any others, we really try to control everything in our kids' day-to-day activities. And so, one of the important missions for me and for my company is to make sure that kids can help drive their own youth sports development, can drive their own team culture, can drive their own relationships with their coaches. And now during this pandemic, even more than ever, I feel like adults are making so many decisions about when we can return to play and how we return to play. And I really think it's important to hear the kids' thoughts on that as well. So that's kind of what kids' voices mean to me.
Ian, I think you've hit on something super important. So first of all, one of the things that we've seen as it relates to COVID is there has been some drop off in participation or drop off in interest, from young people. And I think that in some parts is because a lot of this has been led by adults. It's been pushed by adults. And now, young people running from here to there. And, during COVID, they've had an opportunity to, kind of hang out with their friends and have a much more leisurely approach. And I think because of that, for some youth, they've not necessarily been interested in going back to, having adults telling them what to do. And, all we have to do is just look at our own lives. How much do we want others telling us what to do? And so it's important for us to, help provide guidance to young people. Having too many decisions can be overwhelming, but, really, we all want to have autonomy over, our experiences and how we live life. I think back to what it was like when we were kids playing, and I'm sure some of you all have had some of those experiences.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point, Wayne. Can you guys hear me okay now?
We can hear you. Welcome
Loud
back.
and clear.
Okay. Yeah, I totally disconnected there for about 3 seconds. So I think that's a valid point. And what I was trying to say is, having a seat at the table and being heard. I mean, we constantly talk to our youth about what they feel like their voice is. And most of the time, it's just about being heard. It's about being listened to. One of the things that we do at the foundation quite effectively is when there's interest from the media, my first question is always, are you willing to talk to one of our kids? Because I, as a 43-year-old, know what we're trying to achieve as a foundation, but the kids do a much better job of talking about what the experience has been for them and what the impact has been. So we've had girls and boys from, Vietnam and Ethiopia and Jamaica and Pakistan who have done tremendous jobs at sharing their stories. And what I love about it is I actually learn a lot more about them. We work with, 150 kids in Toronto. We got 53 kids in Ottawa. We have another 35 in Montreal. So that's a lot of kids. And if they have an opportunity to share what they're feeling, then we're doing our job.
Yeah, and it's funny, right before we got on this call, we were talking a little bit about some research that was done on fun in the youth sports space by Professor Amanda Visick. And she actually does an amazing comparison between what kids find fun in youth sports and what parents find fun in youth sports. And there's a pretty stark contrast. So you want to talk about kids' voices, go ask them, what they find fun, and we all would probably be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, it's like young people want to be with their friends. First and foremost, they want to have fun. And, I always find it interesting when fun is not a part of the initial conversation that anyone is having with young people. So they definitely, want to have fun. Want those experiences to be meaningful. And the fun maps, as you were referencing, I think is something that we need to share with everyone, because it definitely will raise some eyebrows with some people who, tend to think that, like winning is a big deal. And, for, I think, coaches and parents, that oftentimes is at the head of the list. I think it might have been, Ian, ground truth me on this. This might have been like number 65 on the list for young people. So, so we definitely need to ensure that we're hearing from young people around what they want.
Yeah, you're exactly correct. I think winning was not that high for kids. It was all about just connecting with their teammates and just the experience of actually getting better and at an activity. We wrote an article in our newsletter a couple of years ago about fun versus winning. And what makes me laugh is that we all say we want kids to have fun. Every parent says, I signed my kid up for this program because I want them to have fun. And then you find yourself 3 or 4 weeks into a sports season, and like the team hasn't won one game and the kids are having fun out there, but the parents on the sidelines are absolutely losing their minds, like totally losing it. And so, it's hard to stay focused on fun, but it's true. That's what the kids care about most.
So you guys have touched on this role about the parents. What is the role of the parents?
For us at our organization, I mean, we have very few touch points with the parents because of our model. And I think actually it helps us. We run an after school program, and what we've done is we've removed barriers for these kids who are new to Canada in some instances, in most of the instances. And, we effectively say, look, this is an extension of your school day. This is an opportunity for you to get some physical activity in and spend some time on the ice collectively. It's gender inclusive, which is really important for us as an organization. And, even at our year-end tournament, we call it a tournament, but really I like to call it a hockey celebration. The kids that are meeting each other for the first time from the high schools that we work with, it's really remarkable to see just that interaction. And what's beautiful is the coaches, who are in some instances the teachers from the high schools that we partner with, they're having a great time. And I know them all really well. And I know that they have kids that they coach in other sports. And I can tell you without a doubt, they're having way more fun at what we're doing at our organization than what they might be doing on the weekends with their own kids. Because I think sometimes we're so structured, right, when it comes to youth and kids sport, that you lose that idea of fun. So for us, the touch point with the parents isn't there, but we can see the smiles on the faces of the kids. And that's how we know we're being effective.
Yeah, and if you ask me, what the role of the parent is, let the coaches coach, let the players play, and the parents can cheer. So the role is to support, to cheer loudly, to encourage, all of that. So I've got an 18-year-old. He's a senior in high school and a lacrosse player and a wrestler. And I tell you, I have learned a lot about myself and others, just being a parent, so like you want to see your kid do well. And, and the one thing that I really get is, not being that guy that is having that conversation with my son when the game is over, like when we get in the car, like, what kid wants to hear that nonsense? Like, you should have done X or Y. Um, and, there is that parental instinct that I think wants to kick in, just in terms of ensuring that our young people, our children, are safe and they thrive and they do well. And you want to guide them and direct them. But, the role is just to, support them, tell them that you enjoy watching them play, and watch them play.
Yeah, I thought overbearing parents was a new phenomenon, and then I read a 5,000-year-old ancient Chinese wisdom that talks about how a parent or an instructor can frequently be a barrier put in front of the kids when they coach too much and instruct too much. So this kind of dynamic has been going on for thousands of years. Like you said, Wayne, it's instinct as a parent to think we should tell our kid all the things they could do better on the drive home, but you need to use just a lot of discipline to not do that and think about what your kids need at the moment the game is done. So I think, I guess, like Mo and Wayne have said, parents need to support their players. They need to support the coaches. The only one thing I will mention, Wayne, is we all talk about it's the parents' job to cheer on the sidelines. And we did some research with psychologists to understand the behavior of parents. And it's an awfully slippery slope, the fine line between cheering and coaching your kid, right? So you start the game and you're cheering, right? You're cheering for your player, but then from time to time it sort of devolves into yelling instructions or coaching from the sidelines. And so we've kind of examined that a little bit, but certainly cheering's a great thing and an important thing for the parents to do.
Hey, just as an aside, it's interesting. Again, my young man plays lacrosse, which he's been playing now for about 10 years. And when he started playing, not many people knew much about lacrosse in the Atlanta area here in the South. And that was, I think, one of the best things that could have happened, because there really wasn't anybody able to coach from the sideline other than run faster. Like there's no technical kind of coaching. So, mainly through the years, it has been just, encouraging the kids to play hard and all of that.
What are some of the things that programmers can do to empower and include youth? I think, Mo, you've alluded to some of this, but more specifically, could you folks scroll down on that a bit?
Yeah, for us, I mean, we did something interesting with a provincial organization a couple of years ago, which was developing our logic model. And one of the things I learned through that experience is, the data we're collecting, and I'll quickly veer off here just to talk about one piece of key data, but we know that 80% of our youth that are participating in our program are feeling socially included after participating in our program. We know that 91% of them feel better about their physical and mental health. So that data is important. That logic model is important. But I think, what we are doing as programmers and what I've learned is getting those youth involved in terms of the next step of that logic model, the next iteration. How do we engage them in the process of even strategic planning? We want to make sure that we're getting that feedback, we're getting that quantitative data. We also want their ideas, because at the end of the day, we as programmers aren't necessarily, we have an idea of what we want to do. We might think it's the best idea in the world, but it may not fit within what the youth are looking for. And so I think having that adaptability, engaging them in that process, we do a fairly good job. We can do a little bit better, but we do a fairly good job of engaging with them and talking to them about what opportunities might lay ahead. I mean, right now we're working on, even though we have no programming going on right now, we're engaging with our young people. There's an opportunity for 50 of them to be involved with the National Hockey League and one of their corporate partners in an initiative. So, we're trying to figure out, does that work for these young people? Especially because in our case, we're running a recreational sport model, right? So it's not a competitive sport model. And some of them may or may not care that they're going to have an interaction with an NHL player or a female Canadian Olympic hockey player. That just may not be on their radar. But I think just engaging them and really kind of looking to see what their voice is telling us, that's informative to us, and that's what we're trying to do.
I think the pandemic has turned the tide on the astronomical spending that's been going on in youth sports. And I'm really hoping that one of the silver linings of what we've been dealing with over the last 9 months is that, number one, families will turn more to affordable sports programs like recreation programs rather than pushing their 7-year-olds to go try out for a $2,500 a year travel team. And the other thing is, free play seems to be coming back, and I'm thrilled about that. I mean, certainly when I was a kid, we didn't call it free play. We just went and hung out on the driveway or in the park, and we just chose up teams and we played. But now we talk about free play as an alternative to spending so much money on sports. And I see with this pandemic, kids are getting outside with their friends. Maybe their soccer program or basketball program is closed down, or maybe they're in their state, they're not allowed to play indoors. So they need an alternative. So I'm really hoping that we're going to see this pattern continue, and for affordable programs and free play activity to really come back.
So I'm going to attempt to thread a couple of things together that both Mo and Ian have pointed to. One of the things that I think makes a huge difference for young people, again, is the leadership side. And again, as I get to that top rung of the ladder, like having to say, so Mo talked about them being involved in program design, if you will. I mean, that's one of the highest levels. On the field, there may be opportunities for young people to take on leading practice or take on, leadership inside of a game. How do you empower your captains and other players to like really take on, leading things that are appropriate. And then at the same time, what if in this age of things being super structured, that there's a space inside of an organized program for free play? So that might be at the top or at the bottom, or somehow fitted into the program where, again, now young people have autonomy. They've got the ability to, pull together either that 10 minutes or 15 minutes or whatever the case might be. But they get a chance to put it together the way that they want it to be. So there are elements of those, that free play that we used to know. And there's that sense of like still being inside of a structured opportunity. But hey, Ian, I would agree with you that, in terms of, I hope that we do see a return to free play in general, opportunities for young people to get outside and play. While it's not organized sports, the one sport that we've seen or activity that we've seen that has skyrocketed has been bicycling. It's been biking. And so, just that ability to get out on your own, to do your own thing is super important.
Yeah, free play is so critical, and I think that's a solid point, Wayne. And that's what we try to do as an organization is, implement that. And I think the other thing that you had mentioned is leadership opportunities inside of the sport. And so one of the stories, I mean, there's so many stories I could share, but one of the stories I would touch on is a young lady by the name of Hong who came to Canada from Vietnam. And, her first year in our hockey program, she's tiny little girl, 4'11" maybe. You get her on skates and, she's learning how to play. But by the second year, she really takes on that leadership role and starts to become a captain. She goes out and recruits more newcomer kids to join the program. It's remarkable to see the transition and the growth when you give opportunities where, youth feel supported. So I think those are two valuable points that you raised, Wayne.
What about youth? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
I want to say one final thing about that. So again, I may be the elder statesperson here. I recall when I was a kid and, we played, our street played baseball against the next street. And, we didn't have enough gloves. We didn't have enough equipment. But somehow we always met up every day at the park, figured it out, made things work, made the teams even when they were not even, so that there was some equitableness around that, resolved our differences when there were challenges around, scorekeeping or whatever it was. And there was not one adult telling us what to do. And, the one thing that I will say is, again, as a parent of an 18-year-old, and I hear this a lot from my contemporaries in terms of, young people and what we may perceive as their inability to problem solve or figure stuff out on their own. And I come back to, if that's the truth, which, I think they're going to be fine. But if that's the truth, we actually have made them that way. And so we only have ourselves to blame if in fact that's the case.
Well, I'll share. I agree with you wholeheartedly. We do have ourselves to blame. We need to make a change. But I'll tell you a firsthand story, Wayne. We used to run our soccer practices last year for 90 minutes, and I suggested that we spend the last 20 minutes letting the girls. Now these were 10-year-old girls, letting them have free play. I said they can scrimmage, or even though we're a soccer team, they can pick up the basketball and they can shoot baskets together. I don't care. I want it to be free play. But it really, after one session, I could see that the soccer coach and me, the team manager, we just didn't have the patience to let the kids work through all those things. Like when the ball goes out of bounds and they're arguing about it, or they're arguing about what they're playing up to, we don't have the patience, and we jump in and we problem solve for them. And so I think it requires some patience and some discipline from us as the parents to just let the kids, let them figure it out on their own.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, I used to teach ice hockey in Northern Ireland, the hockey hotbed of Northern Ireland. And, you get these kids out on the ice, some of them who had never skated before, but part of what we had developed there was exactly what you're talking about, Ian, is just get them out on the ice and let them skate around. We turn on the music and they would skate wherever they're trying to skate or falling and getting back up and figuring it out. I mean, that's what we do, right? As we grow into adults, there are things that we start to learn. I mean, there's tons of people out there that learned how to use Zoom because they just had to figure it out. So I think the importance of free play and that flexibility inside of a structured learning process is so important. I'm wearing my Irish hat today, by the way. So there you go.
I like it.
Can you folks talk about some of the successful ways that we can empower youth during COVID? We've talked a little bit around that issue, but specifically, how can we empower folks?
I would start by talking about about social and emotional learning, which I think really ties into how we empower the youth during this pandemic and going forward. I think I've been learning so much from just listening to the young players on the teams that I coach. So, for example, these kids are either they're going to school virtually, or some of them here in New Jersey are on hybrid programs where they go in a couple of days and then they work on the computer at home a couple of days. And I noticed they would come to soccer practice in the late afternoon and they couldn't focus. They had no patience. They were giggly. They were being silly. They weren't listening. And one of the 11-year-old girls came up to me and she said, "Coach, I can't concentrate." And I said, "I noticed you're being so silly today." And I realized, so these kids, when you just have to listen to them to learn, they need a transition period between their schooling at home and when they go into a soccer practice, basketball practice, softball practice. And so I talked to the girls and I said, "What exactly do you want?" And they gave me a bunch of ideas. So we actually do something where we call silly warm-ups or fun warm-ups. And we take 15 minutes. I let the girls dictate sometimes we do relay races. Sometimes we do competitions, who could do more squats and jumping jacks and push-ups. And they love it. They giggle the whole time. and then we get serious about sport. So I guess that was a long way of saying, I think what's most important about empowering the kids is we just need to listen to them right now. No one seems to be listening when it comes to how we open up the schools, how we open up sports. The kids can really guide us right now. And I think it's more important than ever to empower them in that way.
Hey, you've said two things there that I think, I just want to underscore. First and foremost, hey, during COVID, we're all going through a lot of stuff, and I think even for adults, it's sometimes difficult to just come to grips with what it is that we're feeling, and young people don't always have the exact words to express, and so it's important just to like ask them how they're doing and to find out what's going on. But the thing that you hit on that I also think is key is, what I would call a community builder. And that is anytime you're coming from school or from home, there is a need for some transition from that one setting where you may be bringing whatever it is that you're bringing from school, whatever you took a test, maybe it didn't go as well, you got teased. I mean, no telling what happened during the course of the day. It's important to have that period where you're transitioning from wherever you were, school, home, to practice. And, allowing young people to create their cheers or whatever their rituals may be is really super important. That really gets to the social and emotional health of young people, and then having them be connected and bonded together. So again, for everyone out there, I simply would say make sure that that we're doing that. And at the end of practice or at the end of whatever the engagement is, hey, bring everybody together and have a debrief. Hey, what do we get from today? What did we learn? What can you take away from today that'll help you so that it helps them download whatever they learned into some way that they can verbalize it.
Yeah, that social emotional piece is right on, Wayne. That's so important. And one of the things that we do at our foundation is we're providing space for the kids that are maybe a little bit further ahead in their hockey journey to help out the kids that are just starting out in their hockey journey. And what does that do? But it creates leadership opportunities. It creates volunteer opportunities. It creates opportunities for them to now become the teacher and to support their peers. And we're building bridges. And I think that's really important for us. I like to share a story about a young man who came to Canada on his own from Ethiopia. His name's Firal Yadeta. And he joined our program after quite a harrowing journey for him. He was a high school scholarship recipient to come to Canada. But then ran out of money, was in Montreal, ended up in Ottawa, then ended up in Toronto. And the story is that he ends up on the streets for 2 days. Then he ends up at Central Technical School in downtown Toronto, where he's introduced to our program. And one of the things to fast forward, he's now graduated, he's in college, he's in Ottawa now. And one of the beautiful things that happened is when we launched our girls only programming there, he came out with us the day that we were working with Bauer Hockey to get the equipment fitting done. And what was beautiful about that is he was able to share his experience because some of the girls in that program were from Ethiopia as well. So he was able to then communicate, hey, this was my journey through the program. And I think that's an important part is creating that space and then allowing those young people to leverage the opportunities that are in front of them. And I think that's part of it, right? It's empowerment, seat at the table, opportunity, all the things that we're striving for continuously as adults.
Say, I'm curious. So so primarily you all work with young people. You say that you all don't have many adults that are engaged. Is that by happenstance or is that actual sort of program design?
Well, for us, it's, when I say that we don't have parents engaged, but what we do have and what we encourage is, for example, one of our downtown Toronto programs, we've engaged with the university, Ryerson University, the women's hockey team specifically. So we've got these female hockey players that are coming out to coach and to volunteer their time. And again, what I love about that is that they are closer in age to the high school kids that we're working with. You know, I could call up my buddies and say, hey, can you guys volunteer and come out and coach? But I just think there's more effective ways of engaging people we wouldn't necessarily think about. You know, and I think sometimes we think, oh, well, university athletes are too busy. They're not going to be able to fit it into their schedule. They got classes and training and games. But I think there's a real valuable opportunity that sometimes we miss out on by not asking the people that we should be asking.
Yeah, there's you know, one point that I just want to pick up on that. It just has me think about, you know, as a conversation about the lack of coaches, or, you know, there's sometimes difficulty getting coaches. And, you know, oftentimes we've got young people in our program, depending on what your program is like, you know, the age groups, you know, but if you've got teens, you certainly can take those teens and have them coach or officiate for the younger, you know, kids in the program. You know, that does a couple of different things. So first of all, it solves one of the issues of, you know, like just locating someone else to coach. And then secondly, it adds to the capabilities, the competencies of young people, gives them more experience. And you never know where these kind of things may go. You know, it's like sometimes you only know what you know. And for some, they may even find that they love it so much that they want to do it either part-time or as a profession when they get older. And so you never know where these kind of things can lead for young people if we provide the opportunity for them.
100%.
Yeah, I really like that, Wayne. And as a matter of fact, I think the saying is the highest form of learning is teaching, right? So even those 15-year-olds that are coaching the little kids, they're actually learning, you know, at a higher level than they ever had before.
In the last 15 minutes that we have, I'm wondering if you folks can talk a little bit about inclusion, and then some resources that people can look to.
All right, so it sounds
That's
like
wide open for anyone who wants it.
Yes.
No, I was just about to say, Mo, it sounded like, you know, I heard a lot about inclusion in your program.
Yeah, look, we're all about inclusion. I mean, hockey is a very, very expensive sport. Families can spend, you know, starting at $5,000 a year just to put an 11 to 17-year-old into hockey. You add on a travel team and it could be upwards of $30,000 a year. So our programming model is all about inclusion. That's our mission, to foster social inclusion. You know, it's a free program. Kids don't even have to take their equipment home because we utilize the space in the schools to, you know, keep the equipment there, and it saves. We know that a lot of these kids are living in high rises, for example, in Toronto, and so where are they going to put that stuff? So inclusion is the name of the game for us. We have kids representing 32 different countries of origin who are learning how to play what we consider our national game, even though lacrosse is technically our national game. Fun fact for you. But that's the idea. Like if we don't start to engage diverse populations into a sport that is exclusive, the sport's gonna die. And you can see that because minor hockey enrollment rates have been going down for years. Girls hockey, on the other hand, has been increasing, but they're gonna plateau out as well. And so the idea around inclusion, and specifically with youth, is we like to make sure that, you know, not only are we engaging them on the ice, but we're going to engage them off the ice. We're going to try and help them along their pathway to whatever it is that they want to do, including going into sports and recreation. Like I I would love nothing more than in 20 years for some of our kids to be working at, universities in the athletics departments, or at the NHL, or at the NHLPA, or maybe one of them becomes a player agent, or someone becomes, the executive VP or the commissioner of the National Hockey League. Like, those are the things that are important from an inclusion standpoint. I'll tell a quick story and then I'll leave it to you guys. But Quinton Byfield just became the highest Black player to be drafted to the NHL. And what I loved is that CBC reached out to us, so the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, they reached out to us to say, hey, do you have a couple of kids who would want to talk about the importance of him being drafted to the NHL? And in my head, I started to think, well, how many of them know who Quinton is? And how many of them even watch the NHL? But I put all of that aside and I started to reach out to them. And we had an amazing young lady who's only been in Canada since 2018. She moved to Canada from Jamaica. And I kid you not, this young lady provided such an important message that when you see someone that looks like you, when you see a young man who's doing something that is extraordinary, that's important. And that's the society we're trying to live in. So he's blazing a trail, but I'm going to educate you on why that's important. So that for me is the crux of the inclusion part, is that now this young lady belongs. She's a hockey player. She will always be a hockey player. And now she just became a hockey commentator. So
that's pretty exciting. For us, at iSport 360, there's a couple of ways that we support inclusion. The first is I had a really eye-opening experience with an NFL Hall of Famer who I was in the early stages of my company trying to get him to invest in my company. And here I am, silly, naive me, trying to pitch him on how much money he's going to make if he invests in an early stage software company. And he stopped me and he said, Ian, I'm about making impact. So tell me what your platform does for kids in underserved communities. And I started repeating my standard pitch about what our platform does. And what we realized together is that, our platform is about connecting kids with their teammates, with their coaches, and giving parents an appropriate role in that conversation. But that's just as needed in underserved communities as it is in any other community. And he said, Ian, I'd consider investing in your company if you tell me that you are going to make sure that even in underserved communities, they can use your platform at no cost. And so what we've done is we've been going out to nonprofit organizations and clubs and sports organizations that are not, where they don't ask anyone to pay. And we are giving our platform away. And it really helps bring parents into the conversation in those clubs. It really opens up lines of communication. So that's one important thing. But the other is we're forging a partnership with a company called Sideline Swap. And I love this concept because I can't believe, little leaguers are going out and their families are paying $300 for bats when the kid down the street has like 4 bats that are lightly used that can certainly be played with. So Sideline Swap helps you find used sporting equipment, especially for the expensive sports like hockey, like lacrosse, baseball. So I love that concept, and we're going to do more to support that, to get gear into the hands of those that need it.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So for the National Council of Youth Sports and, for where we are at this time in our history, one of the things that I'm seeing is, as we think about social injustice and social and health inequities, it's really time, I think, for 2 things. It's time, one, just to hear what others have to say. That includes young people, to authentically hear what others have to say, and then put aside our own thoughts and or beliefs, and understand that we also have our own biases about things. And so, one of the things that I've come to grips with is, that the youth sport segment is really boy-centric. And, there's a fairly, good job that happens if you're a boy. Now, if you're a boy of color or a boy in underserved community, that may be a different thing, but boys in general, um, so girls, not so much. Those that are, have disabilities of some sort, not so much. Uh, those who may come from under-resourced communities, again, not so much. LGBTQ kids, again, not so much. Again, only 20% of LGBTQ youth report that they participate in a sport because, they feel like they don't fit. And so, part of our challenge as we think about what we're doing at the national level is how do we help educate? How do we help support? How do we help lift up organizations in a way that all young people feel included, are engaged, and are supported? And so, yeah, that's where we are right now. So, this is an interesting time, I think, for all of us. And, again, getting down to the business of helping all young people, but particularly those that really need it most.
I love that, Wayne. And since we're wrapping up, I will just say I hope the youth sports community and the sports community in general can be leaders and show, be great examples and a great model for tolerance and acceptance. Because I got to tell you, 11-year-old, the little girls on my soccer team, they don't even notice that there's girls of different religions, different nationalities, different races. They just know they're teammates. And that's one of the most beautiful things about sports and kids in sports.
Yeah, I would echo that. And there's some amazing organizations out there that are doing tremendous work in those spaces that you referenced, Wayne. I mean, I think about Jennifer O'Brien at the American Special Hockey Association. I think about Renee Hess, who just launched her Black Girl Hockey Club, and they were featured in the New York Times a couple of weeks ago. I mean, there are some really, really impactful organizations that are doing that type of work that we just didn't think about, right? As sport programmers, as we didn't always think about it. Even my experience with hockey, right? Like I grew up in Vancouver, but I would say that my hockey experience was pretty diverse. I mean, we had kids, other Indo-Canadian kids that were on my team, but when we went out and played other teams, it wasn't like that. And I think that as we continue to change and as we continue to focus in on every kid deserves an opportunity to play sport, and get back to those fundamentals that you guys talked about and the fun side of sport. I mean, that's where the beauty lies, right? We got to go back to that time. I love the fact that you guys referenced playing when you were kids and just going out to play. And we just don't do that anymore. So there's a lot of amazing organizations who are trying to just recreate that model and create that shift. And Ian, to your point about the pandemic having that impact, yeah, I think it's going to happen. I think we're going to see more recreational play for sure.
So in the last few moments here, can each of you just take a moment and tell folks about your websites or any resources that they can avail themselves of to learn more about the work you do?
Well, if we're going in alphabetical order again, I'll kick it off. Thanks so much for inviting me to this panel, Marty. Again, my company is called iSport 360. I would love for anyone in the audience to check out our website and sign up for our newsletter, which goes out every 2 weeks. Again, it's really it's articles for sports parents, sports coaches. It talks about how we can be progressive in youth sports, best practices. We share a lot of humor. So I hope it would be helpful for anyone in the audience. It's at isport360.com. That's the letter I and then the word sport360.com. So again, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, Marty, thanks so much for having me. And I'll be very quick. It's hockeyforyouth.org. And really our Instagram is where you're going to find all those stories that I'm talking about with the kids and youth voice. And so that's at Hockey for Youth on Instagram. And we're excited. We're continuing to grow in Canada, and I'm starting to look at, opportunities in the US. I just got appointed to the NHL's Youth Hockey Inclusion Committee. So talking to our board of directors, we're just trying to see where else can we fit in. So thanks for having me.
And again, this has been fantastic. It's been great being with Ian and Mo. Thank you all for having the three of us here. It's been a great conversation. Again, I'm with the National Council of Youth Sports, and if you are interested in 2 or 3 different things, I would invite you to come visit us and join us. So first and foremost, if you're interested in joining a community of like-minded folks who are looking to support the youth sport ecosystem, feel free to join us as a member. You certainly can, come to our website at ncys.org if you want to sign on to receive our newsletter and to receive information. That would be fine. And then the last thing is we're really coming out of COVID looking at doing a few different things as it relates to aligning the youth sport ecosystem with helping to get more coaches trained, with looking at standards of care as it relates to quality, health, safety. And so if you're someone who has expertise in any of those areas or want to join up with us in the development of those kind of things, again, feel free to connect in with us. So again, thank you so much.
And I want to thank each of our 3 panelists and those who joined in today. It's been a great conversation. I wish you all a wonderful evening, and take care of yourselves. Thank you for your work.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.